Out of the stars in their flight, out of the dust of eternity, here have we come. Stardust and sunlight mingling through time and through space. Time out of time before time in the vastness of space. Earth spun to orbit the sun. Earth with the thunder of mountains newborn, the boiling of seas. Mystery hidden in mystery, back through all time. Mystery rising from rocks in the storm and the sea. Ponder this thing in your heart. Life up from the sea, warmed by sun, washed by rain. Life from within, giving birth, rose to love. This is the wonder of time. This is the marvel of space. Out of the stars swung the earth. Life upon earth rose to love. This is the marvel of life, rising to see and to know. Out of your heart, cry wonder. Sing that we live. Dear family and friends, we have come together here this afternoon to honor the life of Helen Garland and to bid her farewell. I am the Reverend Janet Parsons, and it is my privilege to serve as the minister of this church. And for some years, Helen and her friends organized a bell ringing here on the day of the vernal equinox, when the Japanese peace bell would be rung at the United Nations. When we have fond memories of Helen, including this church and this city in this global effort to honor the earth together. Helen's children and grandchildren have asked me to welcome all of you to this historic sanctuary, all those who have come from near and from far, and to all of you who are joining us today on the live stream. However you are able to be with us here today, we are so glad for your presence. The family is grateful for all the expressions of condolences and support that you have shared during this time, and wishes to offer their condolences as well to all of you who are feeling Helen's loss. It is their hope that all of the reflections and stories and songs offered today will help everyone hold Helen's spirit in their hearts, offering something of a buoy, a rudder, or a lighthouse to carry us forward. Today we have come to share stories and memories of a long and full life, a life begun in India and ended here in Gloucester, a life devoted to family, to community, to connection, and to making the whole world a better place. It is such important work that we do here together, supporting one another in our sorrow. We are here to confront mortality, to recognize that all people and all things must die. Here, now, we face death and also affirm the beauty and the sacredness of life. We affirm here together that love never dies. And we know that your love for Helen and her love for you will not die, but will live on in your hearts and in your memories. And I'd like you to invite you to join now in singing hymn number 21 in the gray hymnals, For the Beauty of the Earth. Laura will play an introduction for us, and you're welcome to rise in body or in spirit.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Good. Got a little nervous about an hour ago, thinking, I hope I do Helen justice. And I heard a voice in my head saying, "You better do a good job, Sandy." And I said, "Helen, I promise I'll do my best." So, do you remember that beautiful moon last night? The moon that seemed to me Helen arranged for us? We were coming down towards Stacy Boulevard, that big, fat, beautiful full moon in that wispy red dusk across the expanse of the harbor from East Gloucester to the Cut. It was like a Helen moon. And this morning I went back down to the boulevard for a run, retracing the steps I would take when I lived here. Seems like just not that long ago, but it was quite a while ago, like 20 years ago. Past the man at the wheel, along the boulevard near Stagefort Park, then the statue of the fisherman's wife and her children. And I gazed down just for a moment at the stone at the statue's base, and one name jumped out at me, I swear to you, Helen Garland. And then veering left and up the tiny peninsula with the cannons pointed out to the harbor, and there across the bay, Black Bess, where Helen lived the last 4 decades of her life, mostly with Joe. The expanse of water between Stagefort and Eastern Point sparkling in the morning sun. I think the thing I remember most about Helen was that sparkle. Those eyes, so alive and bright, the smile playful, sometimes conspiratorial, her whole being so full of curiosity, concern, always ready to embark on a conversation, a plan, a strategy, a campaign. Always ready to launch, just like the fishing boats, the Coast Guard vessels and pleasure crafts that would glide by, forming the backdrop for Helen's relentless engagement with her world, with her community, with all the many friends that made up that world, and always, always welcoming. As Lamise Andoni, who I was then married to, wrote in a recent email to Helen's children, Helen was incredibly beautiful and generous. I have always loved and admired Helen, her passion that enveloped us all, her courage in exposing injustice, and her shining critical mind. They were my home away from home. Yes. And more than ever, and more than that even, on 9/11, or perhaps it was 9/12, Lamise and I learned that in a Yahoo chat room, someone had written about her, "He is an Islamic terrorist," getting her completely wrong, right down to her religion and her gender. The problem was that this person had also posted our home address on this Yahoo bulletin board. In that moment, we learned so much about this community's care and love that would surround us in that scary moment when our nation was in the grips of fear, poised to embark on multiple disastrous, tragic paths. And there always were Helen and Joe, at any and every hour, our safe haven. Helen always checking on us, always inviting us for her dinners of a roast and green beans, or Joe's famous Sunday morning pancakes. Again and again, they took us in, always, always making sure we were whole. "Hello, dears, why don't you stop by later?" And there they were, always ready for us, announced or unannounced. Even uninvited, we were always invited. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who felt that way. Now, many of us know the history of one of the greatest love stories ever. On Thanksgiving 1945, after a long wartime correspondence with Joe Garland, Helen Bryan stood waiting for Joe in pearls and a full-length fur coat. I fact-checked that. She confirmed. At Grand Central Station. Joe was suffering from PTSD, even though he didn't know it at the time, even though it was called shell shock back then. And when Helen wouldn't agree to marry Joe right away, "But I'm still at Sarah Lawrence, Joe." The soldier from the trenches in Anzio grew enraged. He burned all of Helen's letters, and both went off to raise their own families. Until that astonishing day, more than 3 decades later, when they met again at West Point and fell in love all over again and in an instant. And they had an amazing life together. No matter what disagreement or annoyance might pass between them, their union was unshakable, like the granite Black Bess rests on. Helen and Joe represented not only what we, I think, sometimes lazily call the greatest generation. They weren't just great. They embodied a sense of curiosity, of seeking knowledge, of civic responsibility, citizenship, community building, engagement with neighbors, and especially in Helen's case, raising hell. Joe was the writer, but Helen, in case you didn't notice, took a backseat to no one. Helen was pretty sure of herself, pretty often, and sometimes even sure about what others should be doing. Newbar, tell Sandy he has to look at the story about the pipeline. He listens to you. But that was Helen's passion speaking. She was a connector and a builder. From her time at the UN with Margaret Mead, a time she would regale her guests about, sometimes frequently, to her fight to save the pollution of the Hudson River, her struggle against the proliferation of nuclear weapons, the proliferation of corporate greed, her work with the fishermen's wives to help save Gloucester's fishing fleet. Helen was diligent and fierce, generous and curious, and welcoming with that sparkle. Sometimes a conspiratorial wink and a whisper, but always with that sparkle. I'll miss that sparkle, Helen. I'll miss your fierce commitment to justice, your open arms that helped make this community the generous, curious, deeply held place that it is. Thank you.
Am I audible? Let's celebrate today Helen Garland on this spangly New England day, my friend of 40 years, a beautiful and brave woman who never hesitated to speak truth to power. Helen was refined, carefully coiffed, and well turned out always. She never raised her voice or used bad words that I heard. The dinner parties at Black Bess featured her creative kitchen skills, fresh flowers, candlelight, conversation, and that vast harbor outside. But rather than sing praises of her squash soup, I'll tell of the times we shared in the world, which was really her living room, as she worked on causes larger than herself: clean air and water, life-sustaining oceans, and the power of truth. Potable water was Helen's passion, and alcohol was the evil that she would never abide. I first met Helen when Joe brought her to dinner at our house shortly after they got married. He gifted us his last bottle of his homemade dandelion wine, laughing that Helen was purging Black Bess of that devil drink. Out came Helen's omnipresent knitting bag. I thought we were going to talk about Joe's book. I was publishing his book, The Gloucester Guide, but all I wanted to talk about was the book that Helen was going to write about the UN and her experiences with Margaret Mead. Then we spent the evening solving the world's problems. I had the island's first internet connection way back when, instantaneous free global communication. It turned out that Helen had an urgent alert for the world. A billionaire villain who tried to derail the 1972 UN Environmental Conference she'd helped organize was threatening to sell the aquifer under Colorado, turning the Colorado River dry. We got that word out, followed by years of environmental activism punctuated by clicking knitting needles. When we went to New York for Earth Day, which she helped launch in the 70s, I noted that when sailing on that river as a kid in the 60s, we never let that polluted water even touch us, splash us, no less swim in it. And that's when she told me how she'd teamed up with Pete Seeger to make the Hudson swimmable again. Protecting our local water supply motivated Helen to protest building a shopping mall on top of a Babson Reservoir aquifer. Protecting sustainable fishing grounds was behind her resistance to the LNG terminal installed within the site of Black Bess around the same time. To encourage me in these endeavors that invariably encounter strong headwinds, Helen wrote an index card soon after Joe died and gave it to me to encourage me. And on it, it says, and this lives by my computer, truth temporarily defeated is stronger than evil triumphant. And on the flip side, she quotes from Joe's last newspaper article, right against those who would use Gloucester for their own ends. People listen to Helen. One journalist who often appeared on page 1 when championing the Gloucester fishermen told me, Helen may come across as kind of squirrely, but you know what? She's always right. Right she was when convincing City Council to enact a water ordinance prohibiting sale of our water supply without first putting the issue to a vote. And right she was when protesting spraying DDT on Niles Pond. Helen knew what fun was. At Eastern Point social gatherings, you'd more likely find her playing games with the children outside rather than quaffing cocktails and eating canapes. Helen's legacy endures locally on the schooner Adventure, where the captain's cabin is dedicated to her and Joe, and school children can sail for free. And globally in such celebrations as Earth Day. As we go forward, let's adopt Helen's fearlessness, her dedication and passion by continuing to ring the peace bell here at the UU Church every Earth Day, continuing the work and honoring the spirit of my friend Helen, this wonderful, strong woman. Thank you.
I guess we're going up. That's right.
I have a letter to Helen. Dear Helen, I have no address to post this note to you, but it's heart-soothing to write. First, I want to tell you I miss you. In the beginning of our friendship, I remember saying to you, Helen, you need me. Truth be told, I needed you, perhaps even more so. You shared so much with me, from your beautiful home and history to the ways of the world. In doing so, you furthered my education in so many ways. I thank you for that. You are always a constant source of encouragement for me, from the smile you gave for the tiniest nosegay to the way to go when battling developers against destroying natural resources. And, excuse me. Jimmy, Sport, and I just came from hiking 3 days in the mountains. Each step a great reminder of what you've always instilled in me, your love of nature and that ever-present question, what can we do to protect it? In closing, I want to thank you for the wealth of friends you've brought into my life and for your girls who have been as kind to me as my own sisters. You are a great and dear friend. I treasure you forever in my heart. Love, Laurel.
So my name's Jim Tarantino. This is my wife Laurel. We're a couple of local yokels, and we only got to know. Now I'm going to get misty. We only knew Helen in the last decade and a half or so, but clearly she had a profound effect on us. I'd like to share a couple of reflections. I have nothing written, but I'm sure she's going to let me go. I may ramble a little bit. I'm the rather vocal local, and she must have saw that too, because she proclaimed me the voice of the fishermen and the voice of Gloucester that will save the oceans. Well, that was a little more than I wanted or can hope to provide, but in this case, I would like to take the privilege of speaking for Gloucester. And I may sound like I'm rambling, but this will be a reference. Just a local guy, but I decided to learn about mushrooms. So why not go to the best? I signed up for a course at Harvard, and I went to the leading mycologists of the world, taught me, as we all should know, the one most amazing thing about nature is mycelium under the ground. Some of us know mushrooms, they're merely the fruiting body, but the mycelium under the ground, as the Harvard mycologists teach, is the wood wide web. It connects everything, and 98% of what is green cannot exist without that symbiotic relationship with mycelium. It takes the nutrients from the soil that the trees can't and the bushes can't get for themselves. It feeds them. In response, it gets glucose. But more than that, it connects, as Helen was a great connector. If a tree is getting attacked by a particular bug, it can produce an enzyme and send signals through the mycelium to its children, the other oaks, whose acorns and the mycelium attached to, and this is a proven fact of nature. That tree will produce the same enzyme and save itself from the attack. So, the connections that made there is amazing in science. None of life, it's the foundation of life. Nothing exists, the plants, us, the food, the microphone, without those connections. Helen saw deeper in her genius, unwittingly perhaps, but I don't think so. I think she knew the connections that she introduced. You must meet so-and-so. You must come over and see. Let's just reflect for a second and think about what we would be without our connections, without our siblings, without our children, without our friends. Helen knew that value, and that life is just as precious. I looked up Helen, the word champion, because I found her to be the champion. And of course, the first listing is the champion that I try to be, the Dory champion, the best at what I can be, champion on Survivor. That means nothing. It's a selfish goal to want to be the best at who I am. Helen, if you look down 3 or 4 definitions, was the true champion. Someone who fights for others, fights for a cause. That was Helen Garland. Helen Garland was a true champion for all of us. She earned our respect and love. She will be in our hearts and minds forever. May her memory continue to inspire the champion in each of us.
I'd like to invite you all to join me in singing Wild Mountain Time, the Scottish song. I'm sure Helen will sing with us this afternoon. The lyrics are found in your program, and it's pretty easy to follow along. Oh, the summertime is coming, and the trees are sweetly blooming, and the wild mountain thyme goes around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go?
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. My name is Emma. I am the oldest grandchild, the daughter of Rob. Hopefully I can make it through this whole speech without crying, but we'll see. Okay. Who here has had the pleasure of hearing one of Gamma's stories? Raise your hands. Come on, people. Gamma and her stories. In keeping true to Gamma fashion, I plan to honor her today by telling one of her stories. So everyone clear your calendars. You're going to be here a while. In all seriousness, Gamma was one of the generation's greatest storytellers. She told us the love story of Helen and Joe, the story of accidentally signing something naughty to a group of very offended monkeys, the tale of a single mom whisking 4 children off to Anguilla, and the story of baby Rob falling out of the car, saved only by his dirty diaper. Which was her fault, by the way. Gamma was a champion and a supporter of her family. She took great pride in her 4 kids and 8 grandchildren. She would talk endlessly of Sarah and Ted, Alden and Erica, Annie, Allie, Robbie, Emma. I'm sorry. Gamma was a strong personality, and I inherited a lot from her. The most pleasant, I'm told, her stubbornness. Allie, Dad, we're all in good company. Gamma liked to remind me that when I was a kid, I beat to my own drum and never let people tell me what to do. One time when I was 4, we were driving in her car, I was chatting her ear off and chomping on my nails, telling her the latest news. And Gamma jumped in and told me, "Emma, stop biting your fingernails." Plus, I responded confidently, "My mother told me it's actually good to bite your fingernails." And that was the end of that. Gamma loved that story, and I think it's because she saw herself in me in that moment. She didn't take shit from anybody, and she never took no for an answer. And by the way, Gamma told me it's actually good to curse in public. We owe a lot to Gamma. She provided a second home for us here in Gloucester. My siblings and I have very fond memories collecting sea glass on Black Bess, caravanning to Good Harbor Beach, sightseeing on the Adventurer, playing make-believe in Joe's secret shack, and indulging in lobster and fish chowder at Gamma's famous 4th of July parties. We always had the best fireworks at those parties. One of the last things Gamma said to me was that when she feels sick or tired, she likes to lie down, close her eyes, and picture all of the people in her life, and to replay her favorite memories of them like a movie. All of you, all of us, gave her that comfort. And I like to think in her last moments, she was playing the movie of her life, and it was a good one. Thank you.
So Mom would be so happy, as she used to say, tickled pink, to know that A, we were all here gathered together, many of you from a great distance, including our Scottish cousins, to be together, her favorite state of being, and B, remembering her. I'm Helen's 3rd child, after Anna, then Janet, and just 13 months before Rob Carlson. Can you believe she had 4 kids within just over 4 years? It seems insane to us now, but Mom simply rolled with it, and with us. She called us her litter. She meant in the cat sense, not in the trash sense. Over the last few weeks, I've spent scads of hours sorting through photographs from so many of Mom's walks of life. This to create a slideshow that will run on repeat downstairs during our reception. To make sure I had the chronology and context roughly right, I used Mom's outfits in the images as a trail marker. I couldn't help smiling as I sorted about how much she loved colors and craftsmanship. And with a sweet sort of vanity, hung her favorite coordinated outfits together on one hanger with her favorite necklaces around her black best home all over the place, ready for any occasion. Over the last few days back here in Gloucester, I've spent time sorting Mom's actual clothes and have been so struck. It's been both wonderful and heartrending to be touching, unfolding, and refolding all these clothes. I was seeing in the hundreds of photographs I've been weighing. Wonderful in that it's brought her so back to life for me. Excruciating in that, well, Mom, where have you gone? A friend told me this morning that if you think you're going to cry, you press your tongue really hard against the roof of your mouth, so I might look funny, but that's what I'm going to do. Mostly I feel immensely grateful. Grateful that Mom lived long and well and always engaged, that she passed away in her and Joe's own home, her beloved bedroom, looking out on her cherished city, harbor, breakwater, and sea. I'm grateful that Mom's death was gentle, and she was surrounded by family and friends, staying close. Nothing particularly wrong, no falls, no broken hips, or other common elder ills, just some typical hearing and sight declines. Mom had great caregivers she appreciated, and I see you out there. And Mom never complained about the aging process. She took that in stride too. So what could be a better way of dying? She was so grateful too, which she expressed nonstop of late, for feeling safe in her haven on Eastern Point, and for all of you guys, for her blessing in having such great community. Well, she built community, didn't she? That was her strength. There was also this incredible can-do spirit, a creativity, an adventuresome daring-do that she had inside of her. Mom raised us on the Hudson River in a historic home that was an open house, kind of free-for-all most of the time. I remember multiple UN parties and guests she hosted, one with 200 people, I think, of every stripe and nationality. She'd cook vats of her famous beef stroganoff while her kids prepared hors d'oeuvre trays. No help, just us kids. And somehow it always worked out. It was festivals of people, like I said, her favorite thing. And I see this kind of spirit passed down to my sister Anna, which makes me happy. About her adventuresome spirit, as kids, she got us marching up the Hudson River with area congresspeople and a Supreme Court justice to promote preservation of our aqueduct as public land. She organized sails on the Hudson River Clearwater sloop with Pete Seeger, as was said earlier, and once even Shirley Temple Black, for heaven's sakes. She was then a US delegate to the United Nations. Mom taught us tennis, took us skiing in Vermont, and invented fun summers in Martha's Vineyard in its good old humbler days, mostly by the seat of her pants, of course. And then there was, and is still, Anguilla, our home away from home. I will never forget her getting us to this little Caribbean island, a few paved roads, I think only one stoplight, and not much running water even in those early 1960s summers. And this via Uncle Ben's creaky old wooden sailboat loaded with goats. Her litter, literally among a herd of goats crossing from St. Martin. There was only a dirt airstrip on Anguilla in those days, I think. And then she introduced us to Joe and to Gloucester, this wacky, wonderful place. That wonderful man. You all know how welcoming their home has been, and I don't have time to go into all the ways, but you know. About Mom's creativity, look around today and you will see quite a few of us wearing Mom's knit creations, for which she is famous, at least to us. She knit our childhood winter coats and taught us each how to knit a sweater for ourselves. This is mine, but it's mostly her work. I see Mom's ability and love of craftswomanship passed down to her granddaughter Sarah here today, which makes me feel pride. Tongue to palate. One can't think of Helen Garland without thinking also of her crocheting and her sewing and her green thumb gardening. My brother loves his garden. And music. She grew up singing and playing piano, taught us far-apart harmonies, and was ever so proud of her solos in high school and college choruses. I note her love of song passed down especially to my sister, Janet. When I think of Mom, I also think of her engagement in those very Helen particular issues of the day. I won't name them because Sandy named them all. That'll save me some time. Her lasting influence in my case, I became a tennis pro in my early years and work now with an environmental health foundation. Also, I talk too much. So let me just say, we family have indeed received so many lovely missives of condolence, for which we do thank you. I've noted a universal repetition of phrases in them: force of nature, one of a kind, curiosity, intellectual and personal, generous with her time, funny and welcoming. It's been really moving to know how consistently her community perceives her. For me, she was my guide, my team captain, and ever, always my champion. If sometimes a truly kooky and off-the-wall one. But she made me feel safe, and that is my greatest gratitude. I can only hope I and my siblings and all of us do as well as she did into our late 90s. Dear Mom, you would really love it here this weekend. Everyone has converged from everywhere, and we're all hanging out at Black Bess, loving the beauty, talking about old times, smiling with you and thinking of you. It's really strange you're not in one of your special outfits with matching scarf and treasured necklace in your command post, at the table Joe made for you, on your beloved harbor-facing porch, by the telephone or with a friend, watching your birds and home port boats sailing ever by and back. I hope you are at peace wherever you are, and with Joe. I hope it's as good as here. Love, Allie, your favorite child.
While they set up, I just want to express the family's gratitude to Gail and to Bob for stepping in at the last minute with us today.
I have a stage prop. I wanted to tell you a little story that the family knows quite well, that I found out. I didn't know Helen that well until about 2 years ago when I started reading to Helen every night, every evening, for most of the last couple of years. And it was such a delight to give her something in the evening, to listen to wonderful stories. Our favorite was Anne of Green Gables. You may know that story. I didn't know it until I read it to Helen, and it's on my bookshelf now. It's a lovely story. 7 volumes. We also read 1776, David McCulloch's book, and that was her second favorite. We were both angry at Washington. He made a mess of it until they didn't. One evening, or one afternoon, I heard about the Helen and Joe tree on the back lawn. And I said, "What is the Helen and Joe tree?" So they rushed me out to the back lawn and told me the story of the Helen and Joe tree. The Helen and Joe tree happened because Anna brought a seedling down for Helen to plant in the backyard. A seedling of Japanese maple, beautiful tree. She planted it, and the next day, Joe cut it down with a lawnmower. Didn't know it was there. No idea. So Anna brought another seedling down and planted it next to the one that had been there, and the other one grew up, and they grew up together, and they grew up like this. And this is a heart that we thought would be appropriate. It's a bronze heart, and the inscription is Helen and Joe Garland, tree forever entwined. And if you pass by Black Bess, stop and go and look at this tree, because it will remind you of Helen and Joe. The other thing I wanted to just mention was I was sitting with Helen in that wonderful porch, and we were talking about the usual thing, the decline of fishing and the warming oceans, the rising tides, and the mining of the sea, the usual stuff. And she stopped and looked at the harbor and looked at me and said, "This is the Commonwealth. The ocean is the Commonwealth. The earth is our Commonwealth." I'll never forget that. Thank you.
Oh, it's good to see all your faces. Thank you for coming. Sorry, I have to take this. Hi, Mom. What's up? Full moon, just like you said. What's going on in my world? We were just talking about you. Yeah, I'll fill you in later. What's going on with you? Any new intrigues or muddles? Dark Money. Yeah, you sent me the book. By Jane Mayer, right? She's great. She's coming to lunch? So what, you just called her up and invited her? With Seymour Hersh, the guy from the New York Times? Wait, is he still alive? Oh, right, doesn't matter. What's his book? Dark Side of Camelot. Sounds like a dark lunch, Ma. What are you going to talk about? Uh-huh. 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 Hey, Mom, I've been wanting to tell you. I washed that cashmere sweater you gave me for Christmas. You know, that really soft pink one from Marshall's. Nope, I didn't dry clean it. Even though the label, all my sweaters' labels, say dry clean only. Right? Lukewarm water. No, I didn't wring it. I did like you said, gently. It's a delicate fiber. Do not wring it. So I sort of milked it like a goat, which seems kind of appropriate because cashmere comes from a goat. Anyway, what you making for dinner? Oysters. I'm making fish. 3 minutes? Oh, that's not enough for me. I know you like your haddock al dente. Me? Oh, I'll melt some butter in a pan, throw in a splash of white wine, chop some. Just a tablespoon. I don't think that means I have a problem. Hey, did you check your email today? I sent you a picture of Merlin. You know, in that position you love with his snout between his paws. You didn't get the email? You sure? I guess it's possible it was intercepted by the CIA. But it's not likely. He's just a dog. I just have to show you what to click on. Next time I'm there, remind me. They finally fixed it. Oh, good, that's great. At least you were only going 20. I don't get how you blame the other guy, Mom. Come on, we all know you knit while you drive. Knit to, purl to, blinker. Knit to. Promise me you'll stop doing that? I'm cracking up. Oh, I think you mean I'm breaking up. Your service must be pretty bad. Can you hear me now? Good, because I want to get back to cashmere for a sec. I've been thinking a lot about it, you know. Of all the things you taught me, including not to put butter or ketchup in the fridge, I feel like the cashmere lesson is the most important of all, because it's about respecting the fiber of a thing, its essence, whether it's a sweater or a city or a person. Right, plus it's about disobedience. I mean, look at you. You've been disobeying labels your whole life. Me, it took me until my 60s to have the courage to not dry clean only. Yeah, I have to admit it was pretty exciting. I wonder how many grown children can look back and say the best lesson their mother taught them was to disobey. You were right. I hate it when you're right. Remember that time we were on the Clearwater with Pete Seeger? Yep, in middle school. Yeah, out on the beautiful Hudson, and I was all worried about getting back to my homework. And Pete took me aside and he said, "Young lady, be sure not to let schoolwork interfere with your education." You love that. Reminds me of your rule when we were little. You would say, "We have one rule in this house, and that is you go to bed when you're tired." My friends all pointed out that that was not a rule, but okay. Listen to me going on too long. Hey, Mom, I better go now. Everybody's waiting for me to... What's that? Oh, no. We would never invite them. Don't worry. Yeah, we talked about India and Pop-Up shooting the cobra, and you climbing the banyan tree with the monkeys, and Salem, New Jersey, and Sarah Lawrence. Yup, the UN and Margaret, and our summers on Anguilla. Of course, Joe. But Mom, this is about you. Wow, that's a great story. Everybody should hear that. Psychedelic. Hang on, I'm gonna put you on speaker. What's that? Oh, I'm still here. Your smoke alarm. Oh, no, not again. Okay, grab the broom, stick it up in that ring in the ceiling. But Mom, turn off the stove first. Okay, good. Okay, good. And call me right back and let me know you're safe. And I need to know how to wash my silk blouse. Okay. Talk to you later. I love you too. Bye, Mom.
now we'll hear from a number of Helen's friends. I think your names are printed in the order of service if you wish to come up to the lectern in the order that you're listed in. I think first is Anne.
Okay, hello. Ann Malloy. So I'm just going to tell you the story of how I met Helen. I was not an activist. I was not a public speaker. I was just, a Gloucester native who comes from a fishing family on both sides, and my family has a seafood company down the fort. And the city of Gloucester wanted to rezone the fort, and it's zoned marine industrial to protect all the working waterfront fish businesses that are down there, and they wanted to change the zoning. So I went to City Hall and I got up and I spoke against it, and I was really, really nervous. I could hardly speak. I looked like Rain Man up there. I was like just freaking out, and Helen was there, and I didn't know her. But anyway, I went back to work the next day and I get a call from Helen, and she said, "We just loved what you had to say and we really want to meet you, and would you come to lunch with us?" So I went to lunch with Helen and Joe, and she just gave me so much confidence and education, and really confirmed what I was doing was the right thing to do, and made me feel just great. And she was just such a special person. I learned so much about her. I mean, about her, but about activism, about life, about corruption, about, really what's going on. And she was right there at the very beginning of it all with the UN, and knew so much. And so anyway, it just made me feel very special, and gave me a lot of courage to continue on with what we were doing. And that's really all I really wanted to say. I really did love Helen a lot.
Good afternoon. I'm Dana Booth. I'm Joe's second cousin. I am truly honored to be here. I have deep family roots to Gloucester. My mother, Edith Parsons, was born here. Her childhood home is where the post office now stands on Dale Avenue. My grandmother, Ethel Babson, used to rent the Garland summer home on Annisquam River so we could vacation here. This is the same house where Joe spent his childhood summers. When Joe was born in 1922, his parents had a new 1922 Senator Model T Ford. When Joe got out of the service in 1944, I think, he bought a 1922 Senator Model T Ford, which he courted Helen with the first time. Gratefully for us, he persisted. Currently, I have a 1922 Senator. Helen and Joe enjoyed many ice cream tours around Carlisle with us in the car. Helen and Joe always made us feel welcome as part of their family. Lobster fest, endless pots of chowder, tea on the deck, always interesting guests, and plenty to debate and discuss. Helen shared her family, her interests and hobbies with us. I am wearing one of her colorful creations. Not the sweater. My mother made my sweaters. I lost my place. Our older son, Dana, was married at Black Bus, surrounded by the scents from Helen's beautiful gardens. We remember bringing our miniature Model T to the annual 4th of July celebrations, watching the smiles and shrieks of young and old drivers racing back and forth to the yacht club. Over the years, Helen and Joe joined us for multiple square dances, milestone birthdays, and other gatherings at our Carlisle home and barn. We enjoyed long lunches with Helen and Joe as part of their regular dental care in our Concord office. The staff knew it would never be a short visit. When asked to help celebrate Helen's 95th birthday, it was a delight to sort pictures and make a video invoking such fond memories of wonderful events. Remember, each day is a gift to be enjoyed, and that's why it's called the present. Thank you, Helen, for all of your inspirations, generosity, and love. We will miss you, and we will remember you.
I am Helen Buscarin, daughter Allison's roommate from college decades and decades ago. I have always taken great pride in that my husband, who's here, his name is Joe. So we have always been little Helen and Joe to the Garlands, big Helen and Joe. I have one very quick story to share. Just to show the love, hospitality, and inclusion that that I have always felt from being with Helen and obviously also Joe Garland. Decades ago, Joe Buscarin and I were driving up to a 3-day weekend up to New Hampshire, where we have a place on a lake up there. And knowing that Allie was going to be in Gloucester, we said, well, let's just stop up and see them for dinner, and then we'll head on up to New Hampshire after dinner. We had Joe's a rower, we had his rowing shell, he was taking his motorcycle on a trailer in the back, and we had our 2 cats, our 2 kittens with us in a cat carrier. So we came up and had just the typical wonderful dinner at Black Bass with everybody, and of course it got late. So then Helen kindly said, well, please just why don't you stay the night? So we moved up to the 3rd floor. We put our cats in the room right adjacent to ours. And we came down in the morning, had coffee, and of course Joe was cooking pancakes as he did. And to make a long story short, one day led into another, and we ended up not going to New Hampshire, but we stayed and left to go back to Boston Monday night. So, say 3 nights with our cats in tow. We just settled right in. It was much more fun being at the Garlands than obviously anywhere else we could be. So I don't know of any other family who would have done that, made it such a welcoming, no questions asked, wonderful weekend. I have since then done the drive back and forth from Boston to Gloucester. I could do it blindfolded because I know the way so well. I have never done it out of any obligation, but I loved being with Helen and Joe. So I count my blessings every day that I met Allie in college, one, because I love her, but also I have had the privilege of being part of Helen and Joe Garland's wonderful family. Thank you.
I wasn't going to use them because I wasn't going to use my remarks because listening, oh, they're trying to balance. Trying to balance, okay. So in listening to all of you, was such an inspiration that I just changed my whole thing around, and I don't think I can even see it with the glasses. So Allie seems to be a connecting person just as much as Helen was a connecting person, because the first time I met Helen, time to power, was when Allie as a great surprise, brought Helen to my kitchen one day. And I fell in love. And I think she liked me too. So we became best friends after about 6 hours, I think it was. And my son Nicholas, who actually was the connection to Allie, because she was the only girl that he would feel deemed worthy to play his kind of tennis. Now, he was about a really good tennis player, so you could see that he had good taste in tennis partners. And to give us 2 minutes to speak about Helen is just the description of an oxymoron. So I just am going to read the end of my speech if I can see it. And I want to thank all of you here, because if you are here and you are Helen's friends, you are carrying like-minded people to Helen. So I am so proud to be part of this congregation, because it's up to us, all of us. She would want us to carry on what I think was her translation of her ethics and her understanding of God and a power greater than ourselves. And she lived her life that way. She lived her life day by day just the way that she thought God wanted her to live. Flaws and all, more strong and all. And she really had the courage, and I think it grew with the years, because in the beginning her sister probably was more charming, and but there was something about the goody two-shoes Helen that grew into a courageous, strong woman that was light years ahead of her time, really. And so her wonderful children and her wonderful 8 grandchildren couldn't be a better tribute and a better way to carry on her message. And all of you, each one of you, are here for a reason, and that you understood that this was Helen's spirituality, the way she lived, the way she was unconventional, the way she steered Joe, the very unsteady ship, until he used to laugh and said that you two see alcoholics under every bush. True. But I think in a small way I contributed to her ability to steer the ship Adventure, which was her life with Joe, into a safe harbor. Because his ferocious, very male approach to solving the world's problem, and the combination of Helen's gentle but very persistent and prescient, she was right 90% of the time. Not maybe always, but she had something that I think all of us aspire to have, and that is some authenticity, some truth about the way she wanted to live. So I'm just going to read the last of all these things that I've crossed out, and now I barely can see. You were a woman of love in perpetual action and spirit. Will there ever be anyone like you? I doubt it. Never, guaranteed never, will there be anyone just like you. But each of us here have truly been enriched by knowing you. And that is what counts towards a future, more caring world. The word caring summarizes her whole ethics, her caring about her family, her caring about the world, her caring about all of us, her welcoming thing. The essence of her dream should become our dream. well lived by her and well lived by us, and now needed as an example more than ever. It's no coincidence that the vernal equinox is around the corner and that she came from India to Gloucester to share all her vibrancy with you. So I want to thank all of you for caring about Helen. And we are all blessed to have known you, Helen, and we are obligated not to forget to carry on her carry on, like the Queen of England who became 96.
I'm delighted to be here. I'm Marcia Brewster. Helen and I had a lot in common. Passion for the environment, for clean water resources, the United Nations, and Hastings-on-Hudson. Helen and Monica came into my office at the UN in 2002 or 2003. I was the senior officer for water resources at the UN in New York. I had been working for the UN for over 25 years in Bangkok and New York. Helen wanted her Earth Society Foundation to be involved in the International Year of Fresh Water, which was the following year, 2003, and I was the focal point for that. So over the course of our conversation, she mentioned Hastings-on-Hudson. I said, wait a minute, what did you say? I live in Hastings-on-Hudson. So then she opened up, she was very surprised, and started talking about her history and that of the Hudson River Fishermen's Association that had been based in Hastings. In the late 1960s, the Fishermen's Group sued the Croton Rail Yard and for polluting the river and killing the shad. And they used an old 1899 law. You've probably heard this from Helen. Then began the creation of the Hudson River Keeper and the birth of the environmental movement. She had a fantastic memory and never tired of telling details about this story. Along with John McConnell, Margaret Mead, Renee Dubose, and some other luminaries, Helen founded the Earth Society Foundation in the late 1960s and influenced the UN to declare the first Earth Day on the equinox in 1971, when U Tant rang the peace bell at the UN. And by the way, A.A. Tant is still a friend of mine, and she would have loved to be here, but she sends her best regards. The first meeting with Helen led to a deep friendship that included our husbands, Joe and my Bob, both of whom were great storytellers. Helen, Monica, and I celebrated many Earth Days on the equinox and other events at the UN and many events in Gloucester, as well as in Westchester County. But shout out to Jimmy Tarantino. Helen could be a dreamer. She believed that the UN was essential, but that it was a broken institution. She decided that I was the person who could rescue the UN. She was convinced about this and told me every time I talked to her that I had to rescue the UN. Helen was an amazing woman with a very sharp mind, dedicated commitment to her causes, and an incredible life story. Bob and I loved going to Gloucester to share stories with Helen and Joe. I will miss Helen as a dear friend and wish her a peaceful transition to her next journey. Thank you.
I came to Gloucester in 2015 and was very upset with the election results. And I happened to go to a political meeting And I showed up there, and this 88-year-old woman comes up to me and says, "Are you here for the Revote Initiative?" And it was only she and I in the room at this time. And I thought, it's really kind of interesting to have this elder citizen so active. She has nothing else to do. And so I just was, treating it casually. And then as people filtered in, "Oh, Helen. Oh, hi, Helen. Oh, my God, Helen, so good to see you." Everybody greeted her. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the woman to know in town here. So how often do you get to know someone who has this kind of passion about civic engagement? How often is it that somebody starts a conversation with, "When I was at the UN, and we knew who killed Dag Hammarskjöld," and wow. And then she lets it be known that she's reading this wonderful book about the history of the Dulles brothers and the CIA. And I, whew, boy, this is really quite fascinating. So we began a very interesting dialogue together, and I found our conversation so rich. So over, the mark of a good friendship, I think, is that you can give each other pushback. And so we had many conversations, and she had no reservation about letting me know that, "Oh, you think you're so smart." And I was able to give her feedback about, "Well, sometimes you're overly sensitive and you're so overly paranoid about things, you read too much into things." So I was banished from Black Bess for a while. But we managed to kind of reconnect. But one of the most beautiful things I have to tell you is that it's a privilege to have a friendship with someone whose life spans such a wide territory. And I witnessed a woman who went from feeling so concerned about this and so concerned about that and wondering if this is going on, wondering if that's going on, to getting to a point in her life where she was able to let go, where she was able to say, the mission's accomplished, that I've done my work. I don't have to keep reminding everybody of all of the concerns in the world, and I can allow myself to be loved, and I can allow myself to show appreciation and enjoy the beauty that I am surrounded by. And it was a beautiful transition, and it has been truly a privilege to have gotten to know Helen and to have gotten to know her family. She's a dear. Thank you.
Marcia, Helen may have delegated saving the UN to you. She told me, "You're saving the fishing industry." Listening to all the stories today and the reflections, I'm reminded of my favorite verse from the Gospels, from the Bible, the last verse of the Gospel of John. Not all the books in the world can tell the story. Especially with the passing of love, huh? We can never tell the story. There's always more. When I first got word of Helen's passing, it really washed over me what she meant to me. She was such a dear, such a dear friend to me. She was as a mother to me, especially after my own mother passed some years ago. But Helen believed in me when others didn't. She taught me to believe in myself. But we had so much in common. We thought so much alike. We agreed on so many things. I even discovered one day by surprise that she and Joe were driving the same model, make, and color car that I had just purchased, a red Prius. But all the memories, Mass on the porch with Tom What a moving experience. All children from different cultures coming together to ring that temple bell in the courtyard of the UN at the moment of the equinox for peace. And then all the soirees at her house, Joe's house. So many different kinds of people, so many different ideas. Everyone was welcome. It was a truly, all walks of life. It was so inspiring. And then we talked when we would visit. I wish I had visited more often now. She always said, come anytime. We talked about everything, from the world to family. We shared our obsessions. Hers was with the environment, mine was with healthcare and the environment. And we kind of came to a little conclusion in our conversations. And it was, we need to look to the indigenous wisdom, the indigenous civilizations. I kind of even think of it as Helen's hearing Kabbalah. The value and the power of the unwritten languages. We came to think of them as closer to the spirit, not encumbered by the restrictions of a remote power, just immediate. The unwritten languages, mostly based on verbs rather than nouns, the way ours is, all about relationships. The divine feminine. She loved talking about her children and her grandchildren. She often did it, shared with me many stories. I almost felt like I was part of the family. And she was so proud of all of you. She would talk about the things that challenged you and then how you overcame them. And she was so proud. And so grateful for her caregivers. And caregivers, professional caregivers are a special kind of people. I love those people. But her family took such good care of her, and she praised it and was so grateful for it. You did good. You really did. And she loved you for it. And I saw it every time I went over to visit. I could see it. So, Helen loved to sing, and she loved music so much. So, we now bid her farewell. Go on and sing with the angels until we meet again. Thank you.
No accident. No accident that this song, which was sung at Helen's 90th birthday party, is being sung tonight. She had obviously had very close connections with Pete Seeger, and they shared a special bond. Daisy also has a special bond with Helen, and they were both fans of each other. So I'm going to do the best I can to recreate this moment of this song, and ask you all to join us. The words are in your program. And the other thing is that this is a light moment. It's a fun moment. It's a fun song. So just relax and enjoy it.
I invite us now into a time of prayer. Gracious God, source of life and love, we have gathered here in gratitude for the long life of Helen Bryan Garland. We are thankful to have known and loved her, and to have been known and loved by her in return. We give thanks for this gift of love given and received. We ask that as time goes on, warm memories of happy times will remain in our hearts, and that the stories, the memories, and the love will help to eventually fill the emptiness left by Helen's death. We pray today for all who loved Helen, that their sorrow will be eased. Help us to remember that grief is the price that we pay for loving, the price for saying yes to all that life offers us, the sunshine and the shadow woven together. Help us to accept this price we pay for embracing our humanity and all that life has to offer. Help us to have faith that love never dies, that those who have belonged to one another will belong to one another forever. We give thanks for these great gifts of life and of love as we now enter into a time of silence and a time for all those thoughts that have no words. Amen. And now, as we prepare to end our time together, I take a moment now to invite everyone to gather downstairs for refreshments and for more stories and more memories. And so, in closing, the blowing of the conch shell was a way for fishermen to find their way back through the fog to the other dories and to the schooner waiting for them. For us, may its sound lead us forward out of grief and toward lives of love and memory and hope in Helen's memory. And I leave you today with the words of the poet Mary Oliver. To live in this world, you must be able to do 3 things. To love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing that your own life depends on it. And when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. May you go from here in peace and in love. Amen.
A long time ago. Ship has sailed that are made of silk. The decks are trimmed with gold. aglow with a million pearls, and rubies fill each bin. The sun sits high in a sapphire sky, and my ship comes in. I can wait the years till it appears. One fine day, one spring, but the pearls and such, they won't be much if there's missing just one thing. I do not care if that day arrives, that dream need never be. If the ship I sing doesn't also bring my own true love to me. That dream need never be. If the ship I sing doesn't also